It's good to have your company here on Business Now. Well, Australia's wine sales to China plummeted more than 99% after onerous tariffs were placed upon them in 2020. Now, an interim decision to suggest that tariffs in China are no longer needed. But do Aussie winemakers actually need China? Mitchell Taylor is from Taylor's Wines and also a long-time director at Wine Australia joins me now. Mitchell, always good to chat to you about these things.
Yes.
So, more than $1 billion worth of sales, down to literally $10 million a year worth of sales for Australian wine in China. The question is whether Australia's wine industry, which went into crisis over this, has learned its lesson, whether it will hurry back if these tariffs are lifted.
Yeah, that's right, because it was getting towards 40% of all our export sales. So when this sudden decision happened 3 years ago, it really made us think about all our markets. And for instance, Taylor's Wines, we've really looked at all the Asian markets and looked at the potential within there. And we've started to invest in some of those other markets. So we certainly want diversification. The only thing is we are a value-added industry, so it takes a lot of time to develop these markets. We're not a commodity that switches quickly.
So just because China reopens, if it does, that doesn't necessarily mean that our exports would go back to close on $1 billion a year, because the wine industry might not be geared up to actually produce that wine to put it into China that quickly.
That's right. I mean, there is a lot of stock that is sitting in our cellars. It's almost got to record levels, particularly of the Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz. It's up at sales to stock ratio is 2.7, so it's nearly 3. So there is stocks there. But we've got to be very careful here. The actual market in China, 3 years ago it was booming. The economy was going really exceptionally well there. There was a lot of gifting. Now the actual imports, without Australia included, are about half. So our expectations are like we've almost got to reboot and start again. The other thing too is it's a very complex market. So with all the provinces, with all the sub-distributors, it's all about relationships and building the brand. And we've been out of the market for 3 years, so we have to start again.
Okay, and go to the very heart as to why Australia was hit, be it fair or not fair. The reason was, the justification was that effectively Australian wine was being dumped into China. And really the Chinese felt that basically their own emerging wine industry was being affected by these cheap Australian wine sales. Third parties in particular were maybe, even though they might have been buying at one price, they were still dumping it at cheaper prices than what people could buy those wines in Australia. That was a justification, be it right or wrong.
That's right. And that's the trade in a lot of the bulk wine, and a lot of these third party traders were flooding the market in that regard. So we've got to be very careful and very strategic here that we don't want to be accused of doing more of that sort of bulk trade at the low end of the market.
Okay, so when you talk around Wine Australia and you talk to the various winemakers,
yes,
do you get a sense from them that they need the Chinese market to go back into very quickly to pick up these stocks that they've got and to move them on? Or is it a case now that they've now learnt that they can sell to Thailand, that they can sell to Hong Kong, they can sell to different countries, and that maybe they're happier just doing a bit more of that?
Yes, that's right. A lot of players that we've talked to are actually saying, you know what, we've got our fingers burnt here. We'll go back there, but we'll be very cautious. And I think that's the approach of most winemakers. They've also seen the opportunities of diversifying, and also there's a lot of restructure that probably needs to be done. Our plantings were on that optimism boom, and because it takes 4 years to plant the vines and get them yielding, I think the industry has to have a serious look and start converting into other varietals. And actually it's the light refreshment styles, the white wines, the beautiful Clare Valley Rieslings, for instance, they're now becoming more popular and trendy. So I think that's the thing that people have to look out for.
Okay, and just very, very quickly, is that though you talked about the bulk wines in China earlier, it was the premium wines, the very high-end premium wines that were also highly popular there.
Yes, they were. And that's been refreshing to know that a lot of our fans have followed our brand, and it is our legacy or our St Andrews Reds that are sold between $100 to up to $1,000 per bottle, these wines are still sought after because they've got very good palates. They love the fruit, the soft styles that Australian reds will deliver. And I think in the right occasions with their beautiful cuisine, there is an opportunity, to rebuild that part of the market.
I tell you what, Mitchell Taylor, always good to chat to you about these things, and we hope those wines get back in there very shortly.
My pleasure.